What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video. Today we've got that Chapter 3 guide for Liza P. We're starting off at the CRESCENT City Hall, does that say courtyard? I mean, it's like the event center, effectively. Now, I got a little bit turned around, but if you notice two guys, you're going in the wrong direction. But if you notice a bench with friends just below it, the word friends, not the show, you're going in the right direction. But over here we'll have a, this V guy, is it Venigni? Venigni. Got a little piece of lore from him, and we'll be heading into his workshop here shortly. It's going to be the focus for this video, and we'll finish it out all the way up until the, till we make it to the actual cathedral. But pushing on forward, we'll find a man that's, well, not a man, technically one of those P's out there that's committed mass murder. He's even killed the horse. Anything living, it seems they have a little, I guess, aggression towards. But moving on from that, heading right out from those doors, we'll find another piece of that lore. But then just behind that, we'll notice we've got a little bit of a problem hanging over here. And I'll tell you right now, if it's got two ponytails, it's always going to be something of a problem for you. At some point. Not always. Sometimes it's a good thing. Then other times it's a spitter. And it's not worth your time. We'll be jumping down from that point onto the roofs. Then, just over to our left, we've got another one of those enemy types that's going to be throwing some, I guess, balls of fire, if you will. From that point, we'll jump off the back portion of it, find ourselves another one of those, I forget the potion. It's either the one that's going to make sure that we don't lose the ergo on death, or the one that makes sure that we don't lose ergo after the death by getting hit by certain things. Now, I'm a bit of an idiot, and I aggroed the bigger boy and some of the other enemies in this moment, and then proceeded to jump back here. This is not what I suggest you do. I suggest you go back here first to get the loot, instead of getting almost closed in. I mean, anytime you get stuck in between anything in this game, it's going to be quite a nightmare if you've got more than a few enemies on top of you. But needless to say, this guy is essentially the same bigger boy enemy type that we've already faced off within the previous Chapter 2. This time around, though, he's got a big wooden wheel on his back, or it could be a metal wheel. Can't really tell. It's definitely shining, but you never know with these games. Shiny wood, shiny metal, everything's shiny. I mean, even look at the cobblestone down there. Just a little bit of water, and that thing's got the shine on it. But you do want to face off with this guy, as he's going to give you a little bit of that crafting material for upgrading our weapon, as well as an automatic repair tool and star fragment, in case you're trying to use that to have some help in some of those boss fights whenever you find the bird bath outside of a boss fight. But heading around this corner, we've got more than a few enemies that could be problematic for you as we push forward towards this workshop. There's going to be two of them that are going to be throwing things, and then two more that pop up out of the ground. You'll notice I'm in a very dire situation. They could pretty much just breathe on me at this point and I'm dead. Now, we're not going to jump up or take the ladder up on our right just yet, as we're going to go over to where this carriage is and answer a phone call from the King of Riddles over here. Now, these are going to be little, I guess you could call them pay phones, but it doesn't look like they got a coin slot on them. So it's just a spin phone. But you'll be cranking that up in order to make calls with this guy, and effectively you'll just hear a little ring off in the distance. You'll see a couple of these, and then he'll ask you a question, and for this one it's going to be the answer human. But it doesn't matter whether or not you get the wrong answer, considering even if you get the wrong one, the first one's pretty much a gimme. And out of this, we're going to get a Trinity key, which is going to open up a Trinity room, which is going to be a part of this little side quest line moving forward throughout the entire game, up until, well, I'm not going to spoil anything, up until we find the finish line of it. But effectively, these Trinity keys are going to be really valuable for you. I'll be making sure that each time that one of these pops up, we're going to be able to just get the right answer. I did not get the right answer through all of them, and sadly enough, I am missing one Trinity key. You don't need all of them to get to the finish of the side quest itself, but you will be missing a quartz from this if you do not get all of them correct. It's a bit of a pain for me, but sadly enough, that's just how my playthrough went. You know, I didn't look anything up beforehand, but luckily enough, every time it's a 50-50 shot. Got one of the others, so no matter what, even the one that I got wrong, sadly enough, you know, you'll be able to get the right answer out of this once we get to that point in the guide. But heading up over onto those steps over there, we're going to be jumping off over here to the right. Sadly enough, there's no loot over here. Missed opportunity. But down just below is going to be our first Stargazer for this workshop area. And just behind that, we'll have a chain. That is a whip-like throwable that you'll actually whip in front of you. But going up the stairs and over to our left, we'll have a room that has a hole in the floor that we'll be able to drop down into for little bit of a secret area, and we'll have a safe just behind us that is actually going to have a new weapon, which is going to be a dagger. Which one of the biggest things about some of these weapons, I feel I focus more on the handle itself. The handle seems to be the thing that really gives us the capability of changing up our playstyle. The only thing that the blade really gives you is either just a little bit of range, possibly some damage differences between the blades, but effectively it's all about the fable art. The length of the blade's pretty much the only thing that I'd say is the biggest determining factor, whether or not you want to be at range or up close. And just in front of us, we will be falling through the floor. If you don't want to fall through the floor, just walk off to the left, over to the left side. You won't be able to fall through. But inside of here, we do have some freshly made peas, and they seem to be hardened and definitely a bit more tanky for whatever reason. Anytime you see one of these guys with their, bit of a longer weapon, they're generally going to have a bigger health bar. But just behind that, or just over to our right, we'll have this chest that will have a new cartridge inside of it. We're going to be using this one as it is going to be much better than the one previous. Gives us a little bit more damage reduction along with some resistances to disruption, shock, and breaking. Which, if you're not familiar with what each one of these does, distortion is the worst one of them all, considering as soon as this bar is filled up at the bottom of your screen, you instantly die from it. You won't be dealing with this up until closer to the end game. There may be a couple of moments you see it kind of fill up, but I really didn't see a whole lot of it up until well past halfway through the game. But the next one is going to be shock, which you will be facing off with quite often. That one is going to be extremely irritating, especially when facing off with multiple enemies, as it's going to greatly diminish your regen of stamina. You really don't want to have to deal with that one, and that's one of them where you may want to use potions to take away that status effect. Break is effectively going to be the one that just diminishes our health return from health pots whenever we have it on us. Anytime you're facing off with something that seems to have like a blade or some type of sharp weapon that is a puppet, it may be able to cause this break on you, but you'll notice whether or not you have it. When you look down at the bottom of your screen just below your character, you'll have that little status effect and it'll show which one it is. But having those cartridges can be a huge help moving forward and just gaining resistance to those. Now you'll notice we've got the Cyclops dual shield robot over here. Bit of an irritating one to deal with, but he is going to be well worth it to finish off. Now, the only way that we can strike him with our weapon is waiting for those moments when he does attack, waiting to dodge, then get up behind him and start swinging. I can't remember whether or not you can have an acid imbuement on your weapon right now, or some type of throwable that's acid, or possibly the Legion arm that throws acid, but that is something that could possibly break these shields. Anytime you're facing off with acid, it's really going to destroy your weapon's durability, but later on in the game I faced off with an enemy that had a shield on its back that pretty much is exactly what this shield is, and I was able to actually break that while imbuing it with acid, so that's something to keep in mind. But another thing that's really going to help you out with this fight is just having the electric Legion arm. Not only is it going to do devastating damage, but you don't have to get up behind him in order to actually utilize it against him, but you will have to get pretty close, so do be careful. But from him, we'll get the Legion caliber, which is what we're going to be able to utilize to upgrade our Legion arms. I would say the number one Legion arm you really want to upgrade is going to be the electric one, but that's me personally. I really loved it. It came in handy a lot during the entire playthrough. It wasn't the best for every situation, but anytime I was facing off with any type of puppets, even some of them that could be considered like a mini boss, it helped so greatly. And once you get it up to the max charge, whew, man, it can be devastating. But you'll notice we've got a next star. We got another Stargazer just there, and just over to the left we'll be going through a tunnel. Now be careful in this water, as it is corruption. That's going to be something that as soon as we get maxed out on that, you'll notice it's turning purple and filling up. Once it's maxed out, it'll turn orangish yellow once we're actually afflicted by it. by that point, we're going to have to wait for it to diminish, and it will be constantly eating at our health. It's going to put a little dot on us. Can be extremely frustrating, but it's not super fast, lucky enough. But there's more than a few enemies that we have to deal with inside of here. Now, I can't remember whether or not this enemy was worthwhile to finish off, but we'll be seeing shortly here. We've already dealt with this guy one time. Sadly enough, just a star fragment, but more than likely you're going to want to get rid of him, as we do have another butterfly in this section. Now, there's going to be some little crawlers over here that start popping out. I'd say you do want to kind of focus on that butterfly at first, but you'll notice we do have the corruption on us right now, slowly bleeding health. Remember, this is sped up. That's why it looks so fast for a moment. So even I'm looking at it like that's way faster than it's ever been. Was it deadly and I just never noticed it? But you'll notice it's pretty slow right there, and we were just able to utilize one of those potions in order to just take that off of us. But from this section, we'll come out with a couple of those handy little moonstones for upgrading our weapons. Wouldn't be a bad idea, say, if you have a good bit of that ergo, or possibly you want to upgrade your weapon back there at that Stargazer. Just head back to the hotel. You know, keep that in mind at all times. You never want to have too much ergo on you. You never want to have too many of these things that could be benefiting you later on. Even the Legion caliber right now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go back and possibly upgrade your Legion arm. You know, just constantly keep that in mind every time you hit one of those Stargazers. Is this a good opportunity for me to go back? Have I collected enough to give myself a little bit of an upgrade before pushing on into the content? Now, just in front of us, there will be 3 enemies. I went for the dummy that's sitting on the ground over to our left. That way the guy on the right gets hit down in the middle. The other guy just starts walking across, and I'm able to finish these guys off pretty quickly. And we'll have a door over here on our right, along with another piece of emergency potion for our, whatchamacallit, ergo, in case we die. But just past that, we'll see 2 double doors on our left, but we'll go all the way to the end of the hallway, and that's going to give us a shortcut into some corruption water that we'll be using later on. But this will also be another shortcut for us back to the Stargazer, and then we'll be able to push forward towards this fireball. We'll be jumping over to the right, but there will be an enemy that does jump out, so keep that in mind. You know, and he's not exactly the easiest one. I did find out through another video, if you do perfect block with these enemy types that have these weapons, you can actually break their weapon. So if you're one of those people that just likes blocking, that's one of those things that you can utilize in that moment to just give yourself the advantage. But pushing forward towards the right, not towards the 2 humans on the left, we will find ourselves all the way at the other end, capable of pulling a lever that's going to give us another shortcut to the original Stargazer that we had at the very beginning. And then we're going to turn around and go into a room over on our left. You'll notice it'll have these peas hanging from the ceiling, which 2 of them will drop down, a little bit aggro, but just above them on this walkway, we're going to have another piece of floor, and just underneath that in the next room, up top at the top of these stairs, we'll have another piece of lore, giving us a little bit more background to the workshop itself. And just past that, we will have a room down here, which will be an NPC that we'll end up having to fight. Now, this guy's pretty quick, he's pretty nimble. You may be pretty well off if you're somebody that's good at blocking these attacks, then possibly getting some damage in. Thankfully, he's not the worst, but he can be irritating. He does kind of just zip in and out in certain moments. But much like the Mad Donkey guy, there are a couple of moments where we can get up behind him. It's not always going to be the easiest thing to get done, but we will be able to get a few strikes in here and there. And luckily enough, he's not the most aggro when it comes to, or the most aggressive when it comes to his attacks. He'll kind of come in pretty easily telegraphed attacks. Not always we're going to be able to get directly behind him, but that's one of the more favorable moves here, considering a lot of times I feel like I can only get one swing on the guy after I finally dodged most of his attacks. A little bit frustrating, and he's pretty quick with that glowing red hot one, so trying to time the perfect block on that one's going to be a bit of a rough time, but if you can get that done, hopefully you can get more than one swing in. For me, seems like I can get one swing and then it's back to dodging, back to getting beat up by this thing. I really didn't have a good time with this one. I'm not a fan of it. Especially in this closed-in environment. The amount of times, you know, let me know down in the comments how many times you've hit a wall or just tried to strike something. Next thing you know, you're just getting blocked. Can't even get that thing to connect. But you'll notice we're just going slow with this one, just kind of dodging his attacks, then getting a couple of swings in, trying to get up behind him. Finally got one of them right there. Doesn't do the most damage, but it does give us an opportunity to get more than a few swings in on him. If you're somebody that has the capability of staggering this guy, you know, getting that little white bar or that white outline around the health bar, that'd probably help you a whole lot within this fight. But I'm telling you, it's just a bit of an irritating fight. He's a bit quick. You're kind of constantly dodging. And then just getting a swing in here and there. You know, I love how it's like I'll get a swing in while he's swinging. And there's no breaking this guy's poise. I mean, it's like some of these enemy types do have a poise meter. It's almost based on that stagger. But then, you know, your guy, he's got no poise whatsoever. You're just going to be eating every strike that's possible. But you can see this is a roundabout fight. I should pretty much just speed this up at this point. I should have been using the electric Legion arm. That probably would have helped me greatly. Or just imbuing my weapon with electricity. More than a few things that I didn't really have the hindsight to think about back when I was at the very beginning of this game. But keep that in mind. Use some of the things inside of your inventory anytime you find one of those imbuements for electricity, acid, fire. They can be actually a huge help in some of these fights like that. But from that point, you'll notice we'll be opening those double doors that we passed earlier before the fireball, and then be able to head back down to the Stargazer. Now, this guy gives us a little uniform, but a gesture that actually is useful to us later on. I don't know whether or not it's actually something that we need for the main story to progress, but there is a moment later on in the video that I'll showcase where we utilize that gesture to move forward towards the cathedral. So you could skip him if you really felt like it. So far, I mean, you get a little bit of ergo from it and a new little mouse outfit if you want to be a musketeer, I suppose. But that's about the most that you're going to get from that. Now, at the other end of this, this fireball, we do have a chest that we can get a new fire axe from, which I did kind of play around with this one. Didn't really use it all too often, but I may be playing it around, or playing around with it a bit more in the New Game Plus. I'm going to be doing a video soon enough where I'm talking about which one's the best handle, and then try to see what's going to be the best handle and blade combination. I think I know what the best handle is, but I don't know which one is going to be the best blade. Now, after speaking with Tweedledee and Tweedledum, they'll effectively just be complaining to us. I mean, they'll be complaining to us more than a few times throughout this storyline, but that's the first time that we'll see them. But just past them into this room and going over to our right, we will be able to find another one of those ergo fragments. But then going left into this pipe, you'll notice we have a little halfling on the ground that is distracting us. Considering just above us, there are 3 more that are crawling on the ceiling. Had no idea they all pummeled me at one time. I mean, that could have been so bad. They did actually end up killing me later on during a different moment, but pushing forward down that and over to our left, we're going to have a much bigger boy over here. Breaks through. You know what? We're going to open that shortcut real quick and get the item behind him. I thought about actually running away from this guy. Well, specifically right here, I don't have any health pots, and that's why I'm running away. But man, does he follow you all the way through. But I did think about possibly skipping this guy. And I'll tell you right now, that's a bad idea. A lot of these bigger boy enemy types, I mean, one of the greater things about this game is no matter how irritating these enemies can be, the ones that can be extremely frustrating or a little bit more troublesome generally reward you with something that you really would want to have. And this guy's going to drop us an amulet. Now, phasing off with this guy, you know, obviously we're in tight corridors. It could be one of those problematic moments where we could be hitting the walls instead of hitting him. But keep in mind that Legion arm. Now, we did get a Legion caliber earlier, and if you're having a little bit of trouble with this guy, next time you're at the Stargazer, go and level up that Legion arm. That way you can charge that and move at the same time, because that Legion arm for electricity is going to be super powerful against this guy. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that he will be spitting out fire like this moment right here. If you're standing inside that, not only are you going to start building up overheat, but you are burning at that same moment. Now, the amulet we get from him is going to reduce the weapon's durability consumption. I wouldn't say that this is the greatest amulet of all time, but there are times with some of these weapons where they have really low durability, or if you're facing off with enemies that have an acid arc or attribute to them, they are really going to eat at your weapon, and this could be something that helps you out in that moment. If you just have that problem with any of your weapons where it's constantly destroying the durability, it could be something that's beneficial for you. But like I was saying before, some of those bigger boy enemies are just going to always give you something that is actually worthwhile. And right here is going to be our first Trinity room. Now, the big thing about Trinity rooms is no matter what we're going to get a quartz out of this, I need to make a video on what are going to be the best routes for quartz, but it gets a little bit tricky considering it does kind of get based around your playstyle. For different builds, you're going to need different things, and I'll try to explain that in the video, but more than likely I'll probably focus on what are the best for the build that I've been running that's all just about motivity, and possibly I'll transition this into a technique build. But back to where we're at in the guide. Heading back to where we pulled that lever in order to move that pipe down to create the shortcut to the original Stargazer. Just behind that, we'll have a ladder that goes down to some corruption water, and we'll have the puppet of the future to face off with. Now, me personally, I'd say your best bet is probably to come down here, grab up the loot, go get the chest with the new weapon inside of it, and then run away from this guy. I didn't do this because no matter what, there's no spot down here where you're not going to be in the corruption. You're constantly going to have this kind of eating away at your health, and it can be extremely frustrating. So I'd suggest, especially if you'll notice right here, I am definitely going to die. I tried my best to face off with him right now. He's a fairly easy little mini boss to face off with, and it's going to be worthwhile for you to finish off this guy. I will suggest coming back down here just to finish this guy off. Even if you die after you finish him off, you can just come back and grab your ergo from down here very easily. But you'll notice I try to run away and it's just too late. I didn't have enough health pots. I should have went and hit a Stargazer before this, but lucky enough we hit the Stargazer, and this will be a great time to head back to the hotel, considering we need to go and upgrade our weapon. You know, this is one of the, I forgot I put this in the video, basically trying to reiterate and put into motion that we need to head back and upgrade our weapons, utilize the things that we've already found, utilize our ergo, and get ourselves the levels up. Because at the same time, I didn't even notice I'm heavy right now, but I started putting points into captivity. But effectively, I wanted to make sure I had everything leveled up so I could face off with the puppets of the future with the maximum damage that I could have at that time. You'll notice I definitely died more than a few times on this guy. If you head back to the, the Twitch channel and look at the VOD, you'll notice I died quite a bit to this guy. And it's really frustrating to me to think that I actually died a lot to this guy, considering how easy it is. The one thing that we're going to want to do is just focus on one leg at a time. Now, we can lock on to both legs. Now, you'll notice he just kind of stomps. Now, whatever foot that he's on, you don't necessarily have to dodge it all the time, but you do want to back off. You want to switch that to the other legs. You'll notice I just switched the lock on. And just keep swinging on this guy. And then you'll be able to get one of those moments where you can possibly stagger him and get him down onto one knee. It's generally always his left knee that you'll get in front. Get a little bit of damage on that, then heal up. Make sure to always keep an eye on where your health's at, considering we're in that corruption. We're constantly getting hit by this. If he lifts up his arm to slam one down, just go up behind him. You'll never get hit by him. Probably the most dangerous thing that he's going to do is when he lifts up both legs. That one's really frustrating for me, because it's so weird with the lock-on system in this game. There are some moments where it's kind of like if it's a really big enemy, that guy, you just never see him. It's almost like they'll be off screen, they'll be above you, and you can't visually see when they're actually about to strike you. But from that guy, we'll get an ergo fragment and some quartz, which is going to be a huge play for us. One thing that I forgot to mention as well, we got that quartz. I should have stated that we needed to go up to Geppetto's room in order to hit that quartz sword, that P organ machine, in order to upgrade ourselves. That's one thing to keep in mind at the same time. And, since we're hitting that Stargazer anyways, that wouldn't have been a bad opportunity right there to get it done as well. But moving from that portion, we'll be heading back to the location where we crossed on that pipe, and just across that, the room right here. This is going to be the route to where we get to the boss for this area. Now, over on the right, we are going to have another hidden moonstone. that crafting material for our weapons. Over on the left, we're going to have some stairs that go up to the top. Find another one of those star fragments. Moving back here, we'll find another Stargazer right next to the Venigni guy. This is the guy we're effectively looking for, and he'll give us the gesture for fear. That's going to be beneficial for us later on with a certain NPC that we'll come across. Now, yet again, we have another one of those bigger boys. We faced off with this guy earlier. If you've got that Electric Legion arm, you're going to be doing quite well with this. Now, you know, it took me a minute to remember that I had that Electric Legion arm. Again, this is, you know, early game footage, still getting those P legs, those little puppet legs to move, and yeah, he gets real frustrating, I'll tell you right now, especially when he starts just smashing down on the ground. I've died to this guy more than a few times. This won't be the last time that we face off with him. But again, we get another great thing from this, which is going to be one of those converters. This one's going to be better than the previous one and give us a bit more of that fire resistance, which is going to be extremely beneficial for us going into the boss fight ahead of us. Now, just on the other side of this room, we'll have a couple of these puppets that we need to deal with and finish those guys off. Now, I ended up walking down to the boss fight room, but we're not going to go in there just yet. I got down here, looked at it, and, you know, we weren't finished with the room before us. Effectively, what I did was go back to hit the Stargazer, but there is also another secret to this area. You'll notice I hit the Stargazer and then found this. We have a walkway above this area that we need to walk up on, and we'll find some lore and some, I believe there's another hidden moonstone, one of the moonstones up here. Also get a technique crank for our handle, so if you're a technique build, that's going to be really beneficial for you, especially right here, just further increasing that rating for your handle's technique gain from that attribute. And we'll get a bit more of those potions trying to help us with the ergo, as well as ergo fragments. Now jumping back down, we'll head into the boss fight. Sadly enough, I did use the Spectre again. I swear this makes it way too easy, but this boss fight isn't the worst one. But if you're looking to make this really easy for yourself, the Spectre is going to make it extremely easy, because he's just going to aggro it the whole time. He's even going to do a little bit of damage and basically tank him the whole time. I'm going to have to come back and actually get a real legitimate fight with this guy later on, just to kind of get his moveset down. It looks fairly easy. It looks like he's basically just kind of like stamping down with his arm, very easily telegraphed. I'd almost say like I might be able to actually beat this guy pretty quickly had I not used the Spectre. The most damaging thing that he has is going to be the fire. You'll notice he spits it around on the ground. Now this would probably be the thing that really got me if I was trying to use one of those potions to basically take that ailment off of myself while fighting against him. That would be extremely frustrating, just constantly having that damage over time on me. But you'll notice that Spectre really just kind of, I mean, he tanked that to no end, and I was able to just get up behind this guy and constantly do just heavy swings, just really eating at that health. Made it pretty quick. Now, again, I have to keep making the statement pretty much every single time. Save every rare ergo you get, any one of these rare ergos. I did not, I'm an idiot. You can actually use this later on in an NPC to buy up a legendary weapon from that boss unit, or an amulet that is extremely beneficial. You know, you get to choose between one of the others, similar to what we had with Elden Ring with the, I forget the name of it right now, it's escaping my mind, but effectively you want to save those rare ergos. Now at the same time, we will be getting that grindstone, so now we'll be able to talk with the Venigni guy, and effectively now our arm is not only something that can sharpen our blade, but it can imbue it for one time. Now, we'll only get that one time for right now, but later on you can upgrade this through the P organs to have multiple uses of it, but you only have one use until you hit another Stargazer. Now, at the same time, we will be getting a Legion, or we will be getting the Flame Arm, considering we've got a dropped item from that boss unit for us to be able to craft the FLAMEBERG. This is similar to the electricity one, but it's for flame. It's not as good in my opinion, but it can be useful against the next area's units. We're going to be facing off with, you know, what looks like basically a reskin of some zombies from The Last of Us. At least that's what it reminds me of. but at the same time it gives us the option to look at the other Legion arms we'll be able to craft later on with Legion plugs, as well as giving us the capability of upgrading those Legion arms, being able to look at what may be beneficial for our playstyle. Now, going forward, you'll also want to make sure that you change the imbuement for your arm's capability of, the grindstone, and at the same time, you obviously want to upgrade your weapon if you can. You want to make sure that you go to upgrade the P organs, which I think that's actually what I'm doing right now. Going back to hit that quartz and just slot that in. Now, the first thing that I went for was going to be the increase to dodge, and then I ended up going for the pulse cell +1. You just can't go wrong with having more more health pots no matter what. I think I've got 10 by the end of the game, and it is super beneficial, and there are some times where it is absolutely necessary to finish off certain fights. But from that point, we'll be heading back to the Stargazer. I don't know what I'm rolling for, but we're going to be heading back to the same room that we fought that boss in, and then pushing forward towards the cathedral. This is just going to line us up with the opening to the cathedral and give us a nice little transition from chapter 3 to chapter 4. Now, down in the depths down here, we'll find a fire canister, which I'll say is probably one of the more useless items, considering you have to drop it close by. The canisters are not useful in my opinion. I really hate them. But going up into this mine, you'll notice we have some explosive barrels, and just in front of us, you'll notice I even saw the guy on the right, but I went for the loot. They get me every time. I'm telling you, there's a lot of times in this game where they have some loot as some bait, and it gets me every single time. I'm a loot fiend. I've got to have it. I go straight for it. Don't care if there's an enemy right next to it. I'm ready for it. As long as I've got it in my inventory, we're good to go. But moving on to the next room, we'll have more than a few of these enemy types that are going to be throwing those fireballs again. And yeah, he really got me right there. God, that's frustrating. But up top, we're going to have another one of those chests to open up with a couple of enemies to deal with, and I believe it's a new weapon. Yes, this is going to be the big pipe wrench. What a name. Now, I tried this out a little bit. Maybe this could be pretty beneficial if you had put a different handle on it. I'm not a big fan of the swing on it. I thought it was a little bit slower than the greatsword I have right now, but even after swinging the greatsword, I almost felt like it was doing the same thing, but it just slams it down on the ground instead of a swing. So I wasn't too big of a fan, but maybe you like the damage on it, maybe you like the Fable art on it. You could put a different handle on it, and next thing you know, you'll be able to swing it just like the greatsword we've got right now. Again, they're baiting me with that loot. We've got another one of those enemies just waiting behind there. Luckily enough, this one didn't actually take me by surprise. Well, a little bit, but it didn't make contact is the big thing. That would have been the more frustrating aspect. Yet again, we got Mr. Shovel Robot over here. Keep using that Legion arm. Trust me, it's going to be beneficial for you. But yeah, let's just not talk about it. Let's just grind that weapon and get ready to face off with it again. We've got the electricity imbuement from the grindstone, and we're going to be able to make quick work out of this guy. I'd probably say you're better off making the dodge, but if you do want to do the perfect block when he does glowing red, you can, considering if you don't have that one. Well, actually, I don't even have the dodge for it right now. If he does slam you down with that and then he decides to just chain that combo, it can be extremely devastating. Now, increases the weight limit. That amulet is actually pretty powerful. Later on within the P organs, you can actually increase the amount of slots you have for amulets, and each one weighs a certain amount, so sometimes it could be beneficial for you to utilize that as a third one in case you want a heavier weapon maybe. That's something to think about. But heading up from that location, we'll have a little village area that kind of just reminds me of Resident Evil 4 in a way, but only slightly. It doesn't have the same European-esque to it. But over here we'll have a saw blade, which I'll tell you right now, that is a pretty devastating throwable. I would hang on to those for certain points later on. They can be pretty devastating, can help you out a lot in certain moments where you have enemies off in a distant range. Now before we go across that bridge, don't go across that bridge just yet. We have one more item to grab up over here, which is going to be one of those potions. Can't remember the name of it. But we'll grab that before going across, as the bridge is going to fall beneath us. And take out that puppet, move over to our right, grab up another one of those ergo fragments, and then keep pressing forward. We will have another butterfly over here, which I believe has a crescent moonstone, which we'll need in order to upgrade our weapon. We'll have a second butterfly back here with another crescent moonstone, really setting us up nicely for that weapons upgrade, especially if you got a new one or you're looking to really just beef one up that you have since the beginning of the game. But we'll also get a little piece of lore back there as well. Now, we don't need to go across the stump, but we'll head up this ladder over here, and on our left we'll have, I believe, 2 enemies, yes. Now, sadly enough, we're getting pretty low on those health potions, and this is going to be a detriment to us here in a moment. Now, we don't need to go into the graveyard to our left, but we will get locked into this area over here, and sadly enough, I did not look at my health before walking in here, and I just ate a fireball to the face and just dropped to the floor. Absolutely frustrating. But we've got more than a few enemies in here, so do be on guard. There is trouble to be had. But over on our left, we will have another one of those chests that's going to give us another one of those converters. This one is going to give us acid resistance overall, and a little bit more to our physical damage reduction. Now, get another saw blade, and on the left side of this building, we'll have a crank that's going to give us the capability of exiting. And just behind that house, what looks like it could be a location for a secret loot area is completely invisible walled. I mean, at least they didn't let me walk all the way back. Now, this is going to be the point where we'll be able to utilize the gesture that we got from the mouse guy before, and it'll give us the capability of passing without a fight, I guess. I'm assuming if you don't have this gesture and you didn't fight Mouse Boy, you're going to have to fight that person. So if you want to be able to bypass a fight and just get straight onto the cathedral, taking on Mouse Boy might be the easier fight. I'm not 100% certain here. I wish I could go back. I wish I could make saves and just choose the other option just to see. But I imagine you could go back and possibly try to fight the person as well. But just up from that, we're going to have our first STARGAZER for the Chapter 4 location. And we're going to be coming up on our first zombie. Or Last of Us zombie, if I will, acid zombies. Now, thankfully, they're not really going to be applying too much acid to us just yet. That will be something that different types will be doing to us, but these guys will be pretty easy to take down. Pretty much 2 swing on everything. Not too devastating, as long as you run up on them and get that first 2 swings. Now, if you let them get the better of you, or if you let them just start digging into you with their claws, they have some pretty gnarly combos. You know, could get pretty high with how many different times that they'll strike. So I like to get in there and just finish them off pretty quickly. It makes it really easy on yourself instead of having to constantly dodge or getting stuck in one of those combos where they're just eating away at you. It's an absolute nightmare. It can just be super frustrating. But from that point, we'll be heading over to our left, heading up in this direction, fighting off with another one of those zombies, finishing off another one just behind us. Turns out there's 3 of them. A little bit of a showdown out here. But just over to our left behind these boxes, we will have another throwable item on the ground. In front of us, we'll have another piece of lore in front of a statue for this cathedral. And just over to our left, I believe, is another ergo fragment. Negative, it's going to be a fire imbuement. And over to our left, we will have an area that we'll be able to walk down to, which is going to have an NPC that we'll be able to talk with. This guy is going to turn into a little bit of a vendor for us for a what is it, a cube. I honestly have finished the game and I've only used this thing once. For the most part, I found it to be useless because it takes forever to use it. Now, inside of the, just behind the statue behind him, yes, we will also have a new cartridge that has a focus on break resistance. Not the greatest, but could be beneficial for you later on. Now, back to the cube and the wishstones, I honestly just found them to be absolutely useless. I did not have to use this throughout the entire game. And now, from what I could see, from the wish stones that you can get later on from this guy. Effectively, it can be something that really empowers that specter that you can spawn in from the star fragments next to boss fights or in boss fights. That's some way that you can utilize it, but the rest of it just didn't seem like it was something that would be hugely beneficial. Now that is probably one of the best entrances in the game. I loved the opening going to this cathedral. I mean, just opening those doors, having the cathedral in front of you with the sunset almost on it, and just these enemies just fighting amongst each other. Probably, arguably probably my favorite entrance out of the entire game. I can't think of one other moment that was better than this one. That kind of just threw me into a little bit of a stun almost. But we're coming up on the end of the video now. At the other end of this bridge, we are going to be finally getting our last Stargazer. And at this Stargazer point, that guy behind us is going to talk about some golden tree fruit or something. We're not going to find that for a little bit. He's just going to kind of be in the background. You'll be able to see him inside of this cathedral area, and he'll ask you to find these golden tree things. Don't even worry about it. It'll just pop up later on. That side quest is going to basically just merge with the main quest in a way, and we'll just get to that a little bit later on. But that's going to be the end of the video right there, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully this helped you out, and if you'd like to see more of this content, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to see some of this content live, follow me over at Twitch. Hit that link down in the description below. Streaming daily. We're going to be having a little bit more of the Lies of P as we're going forward, but we'll also be mixing in some Payday 3 gameplay at the same time. But I do need to get into the New Game Plus and just finish out these guides to make sure we've got everything for anybody that's going to be running through this for the coming weekend, or anybody that's on getting this for free on the Xbox Game Pass. Things along those lines. But on that note, hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully it's helped you out. And have a good one.